Clemson sucks. I was like, what? Clemson don't suck. Someone said that. And then somebody else said, well, it's because they got too many white players, too many white dudes. I was like, oh, well, no one better to talk about a touchy subject than I, because I like touching those touchy subjects. So I want you guys to first pay attention to the two different ways people see the same thing, right? Same thing seen, but not the same thing said, even though they're seeing the same thing. It's crazy how the world works. The media and the perceptions of how they see reality is part one of this conversation. I'm going to read you guys a tweet from Roddy White. Y'all remember Roddy White? Yeah, Atlanta Falcons wide receiver, was a beast. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let's just say he gave you the unfiltered version. Let's read what he said. As my man said, this is Colin Rugg, who, if you haven't checked out his Twitter account, good Lord, it's all over the place in a good way. Former NFL wide receiver Roddy White is facing backlash after he blamed Clemson's loss to Georgia for having way too many white dudes on the field. He's probably right. The former Atlanta Falcons player spoke out after Clemson's 34-3 loss against Georgia. Clemson got way too many white dudes on the field on offense. This ain't them. You mean to tell me you only got one black dude out there making plays? That's a recruiting problem, he said. Number 14 ranked Clemson was only able to rack up 180 yards of total offense and failed to score a single touchdown. Let's take that away. Now, we're going to take that away and then give it to you the way that we typically digest the same information differently, right? So let a polished approach, as they would say. Booger McFarland going to break down what the hell wrong with Clemson. Let's go.
Clemson, though, it's the third time for Dabo Swinney in his career as the head coach where he's suffered a 30-point loss. The first time that we've seen it since 2013. What happened? Because we didn't learn a lot of things in those four quarters.
Well, it's a couple of issues for Clemson, and I'm afraid to say it's the same old thing. No creativity on offense. It's been the same stale offense for 4 or 5 years. The quarterback, Cade Klubnik, no ability to push the football down the field. And if you're a Clemson fan, you have to ask yourself, when are we going to change? When are we going to be able to be creative when we don't have the explosive players that you've already heard of, Sammy Watkins and DeAndre Hopkins? When you don't have those generational players, the creativity has to change. The defensive line was outstanding in the first half, but they just couldn't hold up all game long when the offense doesn't hold up their end of the ball.
We heard Sean and Greg talk a little bit about it, and it's going to be a theme that Dabo won't shake, the transfer portal. If you go back to 2018, they have 0 starts from incoming transfers, especially in a sport that is adapting and very fluid. What do you make of that?
Well, it's doing it Dabo's way, and I think that's what's ruffled the Clemson faithful about how Dabo wants to do it. When it's good, it's going to be good. But every recruiting class is not going to hit on every player. So the transfer portal allows you to go in, and if you need a wide receiver, if you need a safety, if you need some quarterback competition for Cade Klubnik to bring someone in, Dabo chooses not to. Therefore, you're going to have those laws in the program, and I'm afraid right now they have a little bit of a law. No explosiveness on the outside. Defensively, the front is good, but where's your guys on the second level defenders, the linebackers and the safeties? They struggled at Clemson to develop those guys for the last few years, and they're still struggling.
And listen, Clemson recruits really well, but you can miss on a
Everybody's
five-star.
going to miss, Kev.
Everybody does.
Everybody does.
And then you tweak a little bit. We've seen the Dogs do that, specifically Kirby Smart, adding a couple guys here at wide receiver in that backfield as well.
Everybody does, and everybody does not. All right. So I just thought this was wild how juxtaposed the sounds, the tone, verbiage was on one side to the other, even though they was talking about the same thing. Ain't that wild, right? So let's get into it, because the bulk of this conversation is going to be around the racial element to it, but also the media's perspective on it. I heard words. You know, you ever seen somebody break down game footage and they use choice words when they're describing black players versus white players? So when they're talking about white players, typically they talk about cerebral capacities, right? And cerebral attributes. Oh, man. Intelligent, right? Thinks on the go, things of that nature, right? Really gets the game, high IQ. Then when they talk about black players, typically it's physical attributes, right? Oh, my God, that unbelievable natural talent. Oh, he's gifted. Oh, man, look how fast, all those type of attributes. Well, this one was a different blend, right? Because Booger gave it to you like you're supposed to get it. but he used the words creative a couple times, right? Like, when they gonna get creative? I was like, oh, creative. I was like, is that one of the racial words? Creative. Nah, it's a good hybrid. Creative, right? You could go from both sides on that one. Stale. All right, stale was interesting when he dropped out. I was like, the offense is stale. What does stale mean? White bread? No. Wheat bread? Oh, no, damn. Explosive. Then he started getting, now you know, oh, they need to get more explosive. Interesting. What do you mean by that? Do I need to decode explosive? No, I don't. I know what you're trying to say. Say it. Then he gave you 2 black examples, right? 2 brothers. It was Sammy Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins. I was like, oh. Here's the element that I was interested in. The racial lens when you're assessing sports, right? Because we try to avoid it, even though we all see it and we all feel it, we all notice it. Like, we try to ignore our senses that are telling us, hey, there's something to this. Because there was backlash on Roddy White for saying that, and I can see why. The first reason why is because sports was designed to be the ultimate meritocracy, which race is not supposed to matter. Like, we're not trying to bring that into conversation. That's why there's been such backlash about the black quarterback and the IQ of a quarterback and being a leader of a team. What took so long for the black quarterback to ascend? Now, shoot, top 5 in salary everywhere. It's like black everywhere, etc. But there was a time where obviously that wasn't true. But I was always the one, like, it's a hard balancing act between saying it like how it really is and saying it in a way that people can hear it, people can digest it, because people are sensitive and they don't, even if they see it, they don't want to hear it, right? You can see something. Some people are like, oh, I see that, don't want to touch it. I can see that, I don't want to hear it. And there's always that disconnect. But be real. When you're watching football, you see a lot of brothers out there. I think the percentages in the NFL were 55% black. And then if you add all minorities, it was like 78%. It is. That shouldn't move you any other way, other than obviously, in this country, let's just say the black physical expression was a little more damning to the point where generationally, in terms of not only then and now, we got some athletics, some athletes coming out of that gene pool. Let's say that, right? But to keep it real, when you watch a spelling bee, don't you see who's in the semifinals? 4 people from India? 5 finals? Oh, okay. When you're watching the math contest, right? You're watching the math marathon. You're like, you know, a lot of Asian people. So when Roddy said that, I think we all kind of were like, we checked both boxes. I hear you, big dog, but hey. But then, one, you're not supposed to say it because it's not really factually true. In sports, you're not supposed to even be thinking about race. But if you are thinking about race, some all-black teams get blown out. As Emmitt Smith would say, blew out. They blew out. You blew out the all-black team. That's happened before, right? And don't forget the old stereotype that's based in reality. Oh, the white team out there with the discipline and the resources and the facilities and the suburbs, and the inner city black team barely got a uniform, came out there and they whipped up on the white kids. Oh, that was only the freshman year. Sophomore year, they came back and whipped up on them. What happened? They stuck together, they played together, and more importantly, guess what? They were disciplined. So we've seen it go both ways, so it's not that kind of conversation. This is the conversation to have. Where are you with it? What line do you draw in terms of this conversation? What's accepted and unaccepted when you're talking about this? The reason Clemson is in the position it's in is not based on race. Nope. It's based on the fact that Dabo Swinney has put and drawn a line in the sand of where he's not going and where he is going. And a lot of that has to be respected when you see a person having their own way, having their own script, having their own value system. You respect it, but you respect results even more. And you won't get the results. you desire in today's game, which means more than just X's and O's, which means more than just personnel, which means more than just your team. It also means the environment, the culture, how the ecosystem around college football has changed, right? So there are prevailing winds going around you, but you trying to stay still. You're going to have to be that stick in the river, brother. You're going to have to bend or you're going to break. And that's what's happening to Clemson. They're not bending. They don't want to bend a little. They don't want to curtail it a little. They don't want to customize it towards where everything is going. And when you don't do that, you know what happens to you. Sooner or later, it snaps. And I think the program right now is in a position where it can snap. Not they're going to be sorry as hell going back to yesterday. No, they're not going to do all that because it's still a brand out there that's attracting great recruits. It's just you need to plug and play. Everybody got a spare tire now or two or a few. All the other programs are doing that. And you're not? You're just riding out there on 4 flats? Like, let's go to war? Got your hands tied behind your back if you're Clemson, if you're Dabo Swinney. So I thought it was a really interesting conversation in terms of how you look at sports, how it became racial real quick, but then we got to talk about race at times. Like, I hate the person, but like, I'm colorblind. I don't even see color. I'm like, man, I'm dark and I'm black. Like, it's okay. You ain't got to take it any further than the identification that is who I am, and vice versa. But then, if you do call it for what you see, what are you seeing and why you see that? Ooh, deep. So let me know. Beat it up in the comments. Let me know what y'all think. You think Roddy went too far? Or you're like, nah, he actually kept it 100 and everybody else was kind of dancing. Beat it up in the comments. Let me know.